It's a Sunday, and it's the month of March. It's pro baseball today. It's Donnie Rightside along with Tom Vecchio here. We got you for 2 hours today to get you caught up on all the latest, which includes what's happening at spring training and also going over the National League lineups, pitching staffs, and what we think is going to possibly happen during this 2026 Major League Baseball season. A lot of good stuff, Tom, and also the WBC on the horizon. And before you know it, as I just said, it is the month of March. Yes, March Madness in college basketball. March 25th, Tom. Opening day in Major League Baseball. How about that?
We have some news. We have some injuries. We got some signings. World Baseball Classic in just a few days with the pool play starting specifically in Japan. We know that. Then we're going to be diving into the National League as we did last week with the American League, going team by team, as you said, lineups and rotations. National League this week. Let's get things moving.
Let's get things moving here. And by the way, we always like to take a look at spring training and how it upsets. Like, oh, it's just going to be the Dodgers here, the Dodgers there. The only thing that can upset the Dodgers is maybe massive injuries here. We're not starting the season on time for a couple pitchers here. How about Blake Snell? Not going to be ready for opening day. And it almost feels like last year, Tom, it was the Dodgers working themselves throughout the summer. And once they got into late September and October, everybody's healthy, everybody's dominant. Blake Snell, shoulder injury, not ready for opening day. How about that, Tom?
It's an issue for them, but it's not a big issue just because they have so much depth with Yamamoto, Glasnow, Ohtani, Sasaki, and Emmett Sheehan as their starting rotation. So, the spoils of riches that they have, they're able to withstand losing a Cy Young candidate type starter and still have other Cy Young candidate type starters in their starting rotation. So it's absolutely a loss for them. It's not a big loss. If he comes back by Memorial Day, they'll be fine.
And it's just astounding the depth that the Dodgers have. We're like, ooh, Blake Snell's down. Like, that would ruin another franchise if he was just their ace starter. But we've seen it so many times. It's almost like, hey, don't rush back. We don't want to eat up those innings here. If we get you back in June, if we get you back in July, whoever knows what it is, just ramp up for the postseason. Then once the postseason gets here, all these guys are interchangeable. Yeah, I'll start and go 8 innings here. Or you need me out of the bullpen for an inning or two. It's absolutely crazy how much depth the Dodgers have. And we'll certainly be talking about that in hour number 1 today. Now, when I saw this headline come up here, Marte to Kansas City, whoa, the Diamondbacks finally moved on from Ketel Marte. Wrong Marte. How about this? Starling Marte heading over to the Royals here to add some impact to that lineup.
It's good, right? It's definitely not a bad signing for the Royals. And this is a lineup that you and I are both very interested in this season, especially with the fact that they're moving the fences in. So bringing a little bit of depth and a little bit of power to the lineup is never a bad thing. Listen, if it was Ketel Marte going there and we had him and Bobby Witt and Maikel Garcia and Vinny P in that lineup, then we'd be having a different conversation. But it's a good move for the Royals. It's a low risk, high upside. You add them to that lineup, I think they'll be even better than I thought they would be.
Absolutely here. And last year, Toronto, it's crazy. Like, we talk about how unbeatable the Dodgers are. The Toronto Blue Jays had the Dodgers on the ropes, just needed one victory in their home building in games 6 and 7, could not get that done. But Max Scherzer, back. He's getting close to 20 seasons now in Major League Baseball, coming back. The man's like, I got something left in the tank. You want to offer me a deal? I'm coming back here. Take a look at this deal too, Tom. $3 million base plus $10 million in incentives. I love that. It means $3 million to get you to come back. But if you dominate, there's another $10 million on the table for you, Tom. Scherzer's back with the Jays. I'm going to be fading him quite a bit this year, but hey, he could be an innings eater and just give you that 4 to 5 innings that you need for a quality start.
Both things are true. Like, it's a great contract for Scherzer. The incentives are great. Just stay healthy, give us some innings. That's fantastic. But like you said, he's not the same pitcher he once was. We want to be fading him. From a Blue Jays perspective, Gausman and Cease obviously lead that rotation. Trey Savage, who had a great World Series and postseason run. He's still a rookie technically. But Barrios and Cody Ponce, the back end of that rotation, they may be going with a pseudo 6-man bullpen-esque type day where it's like Ponce give us 3, Scherzer give us 3 or some combination. So it's a good move for the Blue Jays. And again, very low risk, just a couple $1 million extra here or there if he pitches well.
Can never have too many arms there. You never know when you're going to need them here. How about this? We used to talk about for years, decades, Tom. The St. Louis Cardinals always in the mix, one of the better organizations in baseball, fantastic at the minor league level, and doing enough at the Major League Baseball to do some damage, even if it's not a huge marketplace that they're operating under. Now, all of a sudden, they can't sell tickets here, but they're saying, hey, manager, not your fault. Marmol gets a 2-year extension to basically tell him, don't worry about wins and losses. Guide us through this process here. It's so interesting because they're used to being on top as one of the best organizations in baseball, Tom, quickly falling down. But they're telling you right now, man, it ain't the manager's fault. He's going to stick around for at least 2 more years.
Yeah, to me, this is like I almost want to say this is just a non-factor for me. Like I
Yeah.
think we are both firmly out on the Cardinals. I truly believe
Yes.
the Cardinals will finish last in the NL Central. I think it'll be Cardinals last, and then Pirates in fourth. So the Cardinals have nothing to offer me this season. Like young players come up, sure they're going to struggle. They have no pitching that we wanted. They moved away from Sonny Gray. They traded Contreras. Like, yeah, extend the manager, like that's good from a team perspective, but they don't move the needle at all for me this season.
No, absolutely not. And again, it's interesting to talk about. So even me growing up in the 80s and the 90s, Tom, the Cardinals were always there. And even
Yeah.
into the 2000s, winning World Series, like, wow, it looks like every single year they have 2 to 3 great young outfield prospects here, and they can really move it around. Pitching staff competent, ownership competent. Not the case anymore at this point. And again, maybe they're looking out on the horizon, Tom, to say, well, should we spend money right now? And we're headed for a lockout. Maybe the changing of the guard for the financial structure in Major League Baseball, which, Tom, brings us to our next topic. And it's going to be a hot one that we'll talk about all baseball season long. Heyman reports early estimates suggest the proposed salary cap might be set around 260 to 280, which if you're from a Dodgers perspective, Phillies, Mets, like, oh no, we're not going to be able to get those extra players here that we need. But here's something I don't think is going to stick, which it actually should. The floor is around, Tom, 140 to 160. Tom, there's organizations out here spending less than $50 million on the payroll that overnight are going to triple their payroll because it's good. We are headed for Armageddon here. So when I look at these two topics, what do you think is going to be tougher as a sell? Major League Baseball players accepting $280 million as a cap, or Major League Baseball owners going like, I pay $40 million for my payroll. I'm not paying a 140 for my new payroll next year.
I think they're both going to be difficult. I think the salary cap is tough, especially, we always want to see players get paid just because anything can happen in their careers.
Yep.
But I'm adamant that a salary floor is necessary. And I think it's necessary in all sports. And I think forcing owners to spend money will incentivize them, will incentivize the players, and then therefore will put better products on the field and will put more fans in the stands. If you have competent players, they will want to play, and then therefore the fans will want to show up to see at least good teams, not terrible teams that are tanking. So a floor, I think, is fantastic, whether it's 140, 150, 130, whatever the number is. Forcing owners to spend money and actually invest in the teams is important.
Yeah, and it is for the good of the game. Like, you shouldn't be. We always talk about the NFL structure and how it is, how a team in New York City can compete, or should say Green Bay can compete with a New York City here, because they have that overall structure. It's like, yes, you have a floor and you have a ceiling, and everybody's in the same playing pool. Now, granted, I'll always point out, Tom being a Yankees fan, me being a Phillies fan, this doesn't all look good for our franchises because you can always outspend the teams that don't want to spend. And now you put that ceiling in, brings in more people to the equation. But I always found it interesting, Tom, when you take a look at the player structure for like the union itself. It always seems like they protect the guys that are going to make that $700 million contract, like let's just call Shohei Ohtani or, Juan Soto at this point, when you should be able to get in and go, hey, guys, the basement price here for a rookie or whatever would be $2 million a year. We can raise that to $7 million. I think there's way more guys in that boat than the upper echelon. But as has always been told, Tom, the strongest union in professional sports is the Major League Baseball union. I'm interested to see how this goes down. Do they accept some sort of that? Because you still want to look out for the superstars in the sport, yes, but also some of the guys just breaking in saying, all right, let's get some money right off the bat.
Yeah, I think both things are true. The way I think about it is like those bottom end players, they're somewhat replaceable. That's just what it comes down to. Like any team can call up another pitcher or another outfielder from AAA if someone gets hurt and just replace him. I want to know what the actual parameters of the salary floor would be, what the requirements are, and if they fall below it, like how much time do they have to rectify that? Because that means we can be getting contract extensions in season if they need to maintain a certain level.
And also, like in the NFL, you want to get to that next contract. Hey, if 3 years I'm eligible to get that big deal. You can't do that in baseball. Like they have you from like 17 years old to basically 25 years old unless they buy you out with those arbitration. If I was Commissioner Tom, the first rule I'd put in is like, get your good players to the Major League Baseball team as soon as possible. Don't worry about starting their clock. It's always been ridiculous. We'll be back. More baseball on the way.
Nick Kurtz will receive American League first place votes this year. You gonna buy that, George? You want to sell that? I believe we had Caminero, we had Raleigh, we had Aaron Judge.
Bobby Witt. He'll be there as well. I'm a big fan of Kurtz. No, we're not related, by the way, for those who are wondering. Okay, not as far as I know. I keep getting that.
You're a little taller than him.
Right, just a wee bit. Yeah, Nick is a.
Be like this, actually.
I'm not sure Nick would fill in his room. Yeah, that's something like that. But my only problem with him, I think he's gonna have a great year. All right, I think he's gonna have a very good year here. He's gonna be fantastic. I picked 12 in my points league. If he's there at 12, I'm taking him. I'm just grabbing him here. I don't have a second round pick, but I'm taking him anyway. My only issue is this: they're not gonna be very good, right? They may be a little better than expected. Maybe they approach 500, maybe. But it's tough to get MVP votes when you're not winning. All right, you're not in the playoff contention or anything like that. Are you going to be able to beat out an Aaron Judge? I'll buy. I think he's going to have a big season. I think he can get one. I don't think he'll be very, it won't be top 3 right there. But I think he can get one. Yes, I'll buy.
Yeah, I'm going to sell this. I was really I understand what the metric said, and a lot of smart people, George, that I asked told me that Judge probably was the MVP. But man, Cal Raleigh couldn't win MVP with that season that he had last year. And I understand all we're doing is asking questions about first place votes, but don't think there's a lot of love for the voters with Sacramento, no matter what Nick Kurtz does. I'm going to sell this.
Fantasy Sports Today, Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Get a look at that National League here, Tom. We'll start with the NL East, which every single year you just look at the 3 teams and you say right away, okay, should be contenders. The New York Mets, the Philadelphia Phillies, and those Atlanta Braves. I've always said, Tom, Atlanta's one of the best run organizations in Major League Baseball. They identify the superstars that are young. They buy out their arbitration years. Those players get money in their back pocket, but the Braves essentially save 50 to hundreds of millions of dollars on some of these players that they have already under contract and don't have to wait on them here. And that's always an incentive. And also, Tom, we've seen multiple times the Atlanta Braves at the trade deadline making fantastic moves left and right. Cheap players here turn out to be marquee stars in their lineup and can provide themselves some long-term help. But if we are looking at the Atlanta Braves coming into the season, Tom, fresh off a year last year, 76-86. That wasn't supposed to be what was going to happen. 20 games back of the Philadelphia Phillies in the standings. If you look at the lineup coming into this year, Acuna, Baldwin, Olson, Profar, Riley, Yastrzemski, Albies, Harris, and Dubon. You always start with the top of that lineup here. It's Ronald Acuna Jr. But before I ask you the question on how we feeling about this lineup, the one guy that I need to have a much better season this year, it's Matt Olson, man. Need that guy back in the 40s for his bombs.
Right. You know that I am a Matt Olson supporter a couple years ago when I nailed him to lead the league in home runs. So I'll always be on the Matt Olson train. That lineup's good. It is. And it's just a matter of them staying healthy. And it's not just the lineup. We'll get to the rotation in a little bit, but I like what they have. Michael Harris had a horrible first half of the season last year and really turned things on down the stretch. But, it was a little bit too little too late, so to speak. Drake Baldwin won Rookie of the Year for Atlanta. It's a good lineup. It really is. But it's not about the lineup for them. It's the combination of staying healthy as a team and the pitching staff, which is already behind the 8 ball. So if we get Matt Olson back, and along with Austin Riley, who needs a bit of a bounce back year, if those guys step up, it's going to be one of the better hitting lineups in one of the better hitting parks in the league.
No, the one thing, Tom, they could even felt like on the offensive side of things, and certainly from the pitching staff, they couldn't stay healthy last year. Health is such a big agreement on what this team can actually do. You take a look heading into the season, like Chris Sale's getting aged in there, but they gave him a 1-year, basically $30 million extension because of how good he's been. 2.58 ERA last year, but again, only 20 starts out of Chris Sale. You got 23 starts last year out of Spencer Strider. His ERA, 4.45. We were expecting him to be maybe a Cy Young contender here, even coming off of injuries. A 5.40 ERA for Reynaldo Lopez. Grant Holmes, a 4 ERA. Bryce Elder, a 5.30. And then you're already starting the season saying, okay, how about some of these other young pitchers projected and also with injuries? Schwellenbach, A.J. Smith-Shawver, Waldrop here. The talent is in that lineup, Tom, but the big question, once again, can we stay healthy for the Atlanta Braves?
If you told me Schwellenbach and Smith-Shawver were both healthy to replace Holmes and Elder, I think we can make the argument this is maybe one of the best it's a top 5 starting rotation in baseball if those two guys were healthy to replace Holmes and Elder. And it was Sale, Strider, Smith-Shawver, and Schwellenbach. And then Lopez, that's an awesome rotation, but they're just not there. And I want to buy into them because there's so much talent in the rotation and the starting lineup. But again, the health of this is more important than anything.
Certainly is. Bounce back certainly expected for Atlanta. They're probably going to be making the playoffs with a legitimate chance to challenge for that division. Much better than last year. But again, that depends on how healthy they are. Let's flip it over, Tom, to another nemesis in that division for the Atlanta Braves. It's the Philadelphia Phillies. Won the National League East last year. Second most wins in Major League Baseball. And now it looks like the Phillies are running it back this year. Estimated lineup for them: Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Alec Boehm, Brandon Marsh, Adolis Garcia, Bryson Stott, JT Realmuto, and Justin Crawford. In that lineup, you see the adjustments there. Adolis Garcia, cheap contract coming over, 2 down years. Can he get back in the hitter's ballpark? We'll find that out. And also, Justin Crawford slated to be in. We don't know the exact lineup where he's going to be, but projected in center field and maybe early in the lineup, or he could be batting at the bottom of the lineup. Having a decent spring so far, Tom, but the questions come up. They wanted Bo Bichette. They had Bo Bichette. Last minute, the Mets sweeped in here, which made the Phillies go out and then re-sign JT Realmuto, but didn't change that lineup much. Very good in the regular season, Tom. Last 2 postseasons, a lot to be desired at the plate.
That's right. I don't have many different takes compared to what I had last year about the Phillies, just because the lineup is so similar. Like, it's a really good lineup, like especially the top of that lineup. And, immediately my mind goes to a Turner, Schwarber, Harper, or Baum HRR market, right? The 3 of them, you get them close to like minus 125 or plus money if you can get there. And that's what we know we're going to be. We're going to be getting 40 plus homers out of Schwarber as usual. We're going to be getting 100 plus RBIs. You want Harper to have a bounce back year. Trey Turner is awesome. Top to bottom, it's really good. We can make the argument it's the best lineup in the NL East.
Yeah, it's healthy, of course, and I do like the fact that Dave Dombrowski's like, well, I don't think Bryce Harper's a lead anymore. Pissed him off in the offseason, so he's going to come back extra strong this year, at least try to be that way. But the Phillies pitching staff, Tom, still there. They lose Ranger Suarez as a free agent to Boston. You can't re-sign anybody. Christopher Sanchez, one of the best pitchers here, but the key is Zach Wheeler throwing back off a mound looks good in doing that. If he gets back any semblance of what he was over his career, that would be great for the Philadelphia Phillies. If you remember last year, that's one of those guys where all of a sudden in the month of August, wait a second, he's going to be out for the rest of the season. Somebody else has to step up. You also have some other guys, Jesus Luzardo, very good. Aaron Nola keeping it there. Andrew Painter, one of the better prospects in baseball, who struggled last year. They're expecting him to come out, but also it depends, Tom. When you start to project the Philadelphia Phillies heading into the playoffs here, it's Zach Wheeler healthy, Christopher Sanchez healthy. It's a great 1-2 punch.
It really is. Painter is someone that I had my eye on last year, when he was being called or, potentially being called up. He obviously, didn't break through. But, I almost see the Wheeler thing as if he's just healthy in the second half, the innings won't be a stress on him because he's just not going to have the volume of innings. And then if you can, as you said, roll with that 1-2 punch and then have Luzardo as a 3 option, that's pretty good. Like, that's up there with some of the best in the league as a 1-2 punch that you want. So I think the Wheeler thing actually is like a silver lining where, like, he's not going to have 180 innings. He could actually have half of that and be ready to roll in September and October.
Yeah, and also you take a look at the Phillies bullpen, get Duran, of course, in that trade last year with Minnesota. Also Alvarado, who was suspended and was not eligible to pitch in the postseason, will be back this year. Acquiring Brad Keller and then also Ryan Kerkering here. So a solid Phillies team. But if you listen around sports talk media like I do sometimes in Philadelphia, not a lot of expectations on the Phillies, even though, again, they had the second most wins in Major League Baseball last year, brought back the majority of their team. But it just feels like Bo Bichette not coming to the Phillies really upset the apple cart here, Tom. But I do think it is a 2-team right now with Atlanta and Philadelphia, which after the break, we're going to start talking about those New York Metropolitans and how they figure it in. But as always, the AL East should be really competitive. There's a couple teams, Tom, that we're going to talk about at the bottom that could do damage.
Absolutely. A couple more to get to on the other side of this break.
Absolutely, people. Pro Baseball Today right here on a Sunday. We'll be right back.
Nick Kurtz will receive American League first place votes this year. You going to buy that, George? you want to sell that. I believe we had Caminero, we had Raleigh, we had Aaron Judge.
Bobby Witt, he'll be there as well. I said I'm a big fan of Kurtz. No, we're not related, by the way, for those who are wondering. Okay, not as far as I know. I keep getting that.
You're a little taller than him.
Right, just a wee bit. Yeah, Nick is a.
Be like this, actually.
I'm not sure Nick would fill in his room. Yeah, that's something like that. But my only problem with him, I think he's gonna have a great year. All right, I think he's gonna have a very good year here. He's gonna be fantastic. I picked 12 in my points league. If he's there at 12, I'm taking him. I'm just grabbing him here. I don't have a second round pick, but I'm taking him anyway. My only issue is this: they're not going to be very good, right? They may be a little better than expected. Maybe they approach 500, maybe, but it's tough to get MVP votes when you're not winning. All right, you're not in the playoff contention or anything like that. Are you going to be able to beat out an Aaron Judge? I'll buy. I think he's going to have a big season. I think he can get one. I don't think he'll be very, it won't be top 3 right there. But I think he can get one. Yes, I'll buy.
Yeah, I'm going to sell this. I was really I understand what the metric said, and a lot of smart people, Georgia, that I asked told me that Judge probably was the MVP. But man, Cal Raleigh couldn't win MVP with that season that he had last year. And I understand all we're doing is asking questions about first place votes, but don't think there's a lot of love for the voters with Sacramento, no matter what Nick Kurtz does. I'm going to sell this.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Pro Baseball Today, rated on a Sunday. It's Donnie Rightside along with Tom Vecchio here, rolling through the NL, giving you those updates on the anticipation of the season starting. And also, how about those pitching staffs and those lineups here? A team that played well, Tom, down the stretch last year was the Miami Marlins. You take a look at where they finished up, third in the division with 79 wins and a lot of young talent. If we project that lineup and where it's going to go this season, Tom, Marcy, Edwards, Stowers, Ramirez, Conan, Lopez, Hicks, Norby, and Kelsey in that lineup here with 27 bombs from Xavier Edwards here. It's got some talent, that lineup. Every year it matures. The question is, will they ever spend some money to sort of fortify that staff? But, Tom, looking at the way they finished last year, almost 80 wins, projecting this year with that lineup, how we feel?
I like Kyle Stowers. That's my main takeaway. I think he's legit good. Last year coming into the season, I was talking about the Nationals, and I was like, oh, this is a team that I think they're not going to be good, but they'll cause trouble for the other teams in the NL East. And they're not just going to be a pushover. Yeah. And I think that ended up being the Marlins. And I think that's what my take is coming to this year. The Marlins, if they finish within, let's call it 5-ish wins of where they were last year, I think they're going to cause trouble for the other teams where they can't, other teams, the Mets, the Braves, and Phillies can't go, oh, we're playing the Marlins, we can win 2 of 3 in that series.
Take a look at that pitching staff here, Tom. Sandy Alcantara in that lineup. It's like, all right, can he bounce back to that form that we expected him before the injury last year, Tom? 31 games started, a 5.36 ERA. Not very Sandy like Yuri Perez, Chris Paddock, Max Meyer, Braxton Garrett. Those are the question marks that you have. A lot of high ERA guys coming into it, but if Sandy Alcantara cannot return back to form, and they probably hope he does so they can trade him here, I don't have much hope for that pitching staff, but I like the lineup as is. But it always feels like the Marlins now are that feisty team, as you point out, which might not factor into winning the actual NL East, but might factor into who is actually going to win it because you can't steal games from them.
Right. I would say the trio of Perez, Meyer, and Garrett, 3 young pitchers that they have, is really going to shape what they can accomplish this season. If these players can elevate their game and stay healthy, as we've seen some injuries from them in the past, if they stay healthy and they're at least competent, let's call them, number 3-ish starters across the board, having 3 number 3 guys in their starting rotation is not bad. If they take a step back and they can't be healthy, this is where we really see the bottom fall out for the Marlins.
How about the New York Metropolitans? Last year, you thought they might be able to challenge the Philadelphia Phillies, but really fell off, finishing 13 games back of the Philadelphia Phillies. But that lineup got some reinforcements this season. Lindor, Soto, Bichette, Polanco, Simeon, Beatty, Alvarez, Robert Jr., and Benje, Carson Benje. How about that? Expected to be possibly in that 9 spot. Tom, answer me this question here. There's a lot of moving parts in that lineup, which we love offense. On a day-to-day basis, I've already told you this. Like, I'm going to be interested in the Mets, RBI props, everything in the top of that lineup. But the question is, Tom, can they field their positions? We know they can hit their positions.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see Jorge Polanco play first base, who they signed in the offseason because they lost Pete Alonso. Jorge Polanco has literally never played a game at first base. Jorge Polanco has 9 years of MLB experience, never played a single game at first base. Bo Bichette is moving to third. He's never played at third. I've seen some early videos in spring training of him having some fielding difficulties. I don't know what their defense is going to be like for the Mets. They're going to have to hit their way out of games. They're going to have to hit their way into the lead and then trust the bullpen to come through and save things. But I love the Mets lineup this year. There's nothing not to like about it. Seeing the young players step up at the bottom lineup, Carson Bench or Brett Beatty, Alvarez if he stays healthy, bring in Luis Robert. Everything you want from a hitting, betting, fantasy perspective the Mets offer. Everything else in terms of real life baseball, that's a different story.
I thought a really key acquisition, Tom, was making that trade there by getting Freddie Peralta to be that number one in that lineup here, because Nolan McLean only 8 starts last year. Tom, about a 2 ERA, a lot of hype and expectation on him. Solid pitchers behind him, Peterson, Holmes, Minaya, and also Kodai Senga, who only had 22 starts last year, Tom, and a 3 ERA. He bounces back into the form. This is a formidable team. I love the way they hit. Questionable in the field how they feel, which is going to be a big deal. Solid bullpen to pick up Devin Williams. And the funny part about Devin Williams, Tom, for spring training, first pitch ended up in a home run here. So welcome to New York once again. But Peralta is that move here for their number one. I like their pitching staff.
It really is good. Peralta has already been the opening day starter for the Mets, really solidifies the top of that. McLean, obviously a young pitcher, has yet to prove himself. He's got great stuff. He looks good in spring. Very limited sample size from him last year, but I have very high hopes for him. I think he will elevate himself. Then it really just comes down to those other guys, the 4 at the bottom, Peterson, Holmes, Minaya, Senga, like you said. They just, I don't want to say tread water, but that's what they almost need to do. Just tread water and they'll be fine.
Yeah, a couple disappointing seasons last year. And again, the Mets, 83 and 79, certainly disappointing for them. But then you take a look at the Atlanta Braves. We just previewed there, 20 games back of the Phillies last year. Much more competitive it should be between the Phillies, the Mets, and the Braves here. Marlins, will see if they're feisty. Now, we're talking about those Washington Nationals. What happened to that franchise at this point now? We'll bring up that roster next right here on Pro Baseball Today.
Nick Kurtz will receive American League first place votes this year. You going to buy that, George? Or you want to sell that? I believe we had Caminero, we had Raleigh, we had Aaron Judge.
Bobby Witt. He'll be there as well. I'm a big fan of Kurtz. No, we're not related, by the way, for those who are wondering. Okay, not as far as I know. I keep getting that.
You're a little taller than him.
Right, just a wee bit. Yeah, Nick is a.
Be like this, actually.
I'm not sure Nick would fill in his room. Yeah, that's something like that. But my only problem with him, I think he's gonna have a great year. All right, I think he's gonna have a very good year here. He's gonna be fantastic. I picked 12 in my points league. If he's there at 12, I'm taking him. I'm just grabbing him here. I don't have a second round pick, but I'm taking him anyway. My only issue is this: they're not gonna be very good, right? They may be a little better than expected. Maybe they approach 500, maybe. But it's tough to get MVP votes when you're not winning. All right, you're not in the playoff contention or anything like that. Are you going to be able to beat out an Aaron Judge? I'll buy. I think he's going to have a big season. I think he can get 1. I don't think he'll be very, it won't be top 3 or anything. I think he can get 1. Yes, I'll buy.
Yeah, I'm going to sell this. I was really I understand what the metrics said, and a lot of smart people, George, that I asked told me that Judge probably was the MVP. But man, Cal Raleigh couldn't win MVP with that season that he had last year. And I understand all we're doing is asking questions about first place votes, but don't think there's a lot of love for the voters with Sacramento, no matter what Nick Kurtz does. I'm going to sell this.
Fantasy Sports Today, Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Some people might look at the bottom of divisions and say, oh, those teams are bad, and I don't want to get involved with those. Nonsense. Donnie, Rightside, and Tom Vecchio are going to let you know why that's the case. The Washington Nationals, they got a decent little lineup here and a lot of young players in here. James Wood, C.J. Abrams, to name a few, and all the way down the list. But the question, Tom, for me is not so much how the lineup is going to hit, because some of that talent is going to do that. C.J. Abrams, 19 bombs last year. James Wood, 31 home runs last year. I like the top of that lineup, and they could be able to do some damage. But the question's going to be, Tom, is where are they getting their pitching from? Miles Michaelis, Kay Cavalli, Brad Lord, Josiah Gray, Foster Griffin. You look at some of those ERAs and the expectations, Tom. I find myself saying, like, yeah, you like great baseball, but I'm going to have my hand a lot with those Nationals, whether it's RBIs or whether it's the other team just going up against the Nationals pitchers. It's a team I'm going to be fond of this year, Tom. I am.
I would say the top four of that lineup is good. It's not great. It's good. And they obviously young, a lot of upside from those players. You know, you said at the top, talking about bad teams, you don't want to have involvement in them. When the Nats are on, playing every day, 6 days a week, whatever it is, like, you should be looking at who the Nats are playing, because it's not just about the Nats and, are they going to win this game? Are they going to score? It's more, it's like, who's pitching for the Nats? They're going to give up runs. Let me have interest in the other team playing them. So the Nats bring nothing to the table when it comes to pitching, which means that you're going to lose games 8-3, 8-4, because at least they have some type of offense, but the pitching is terrible.
You know what I find myself too? You look at like how organizations like evolve. Like the Nationals, when they came in, stock draft picks, made sound decisions. That lineup was as good as it gets. World Series, and away you go. And the systematic destruction of superstar players getting traded away, Tom. And not only just that, but not making the right moves. Like sometimes you want to say, well, I'm not going to pay them. We're going to restrict payroll. But get really good prospects back, some of the most dominant players in baseball. They just didn't do that all that well. And those young players didn't turn out. And then you find yourself with a 66-win team. And if you're a Nationals fan, you go, boy, we were in the glory days where it looks like we were just going to roll over season to season with the most dominant pitching staff, unbelievable players in our lineup with enough to compete not only for NL East championships, but also NL pennants and World Series championships. Now find themselves basically waddling like, we'll see if we can ever get out of it, but not really making any big deals. Sucks the way it is, which is perfect, Tom, to a switch over. Now we get to the Central Division and those Pittsburgh Pirates. All we ask for the Pirates to do is hold on to some of your players, and you probably would be challenging for World Series, but it just feels like a rental organization. Looking at the lineup here, O'Neal Cruz, Brandon Lau comes over there in a trade from Tampa Bay. Reynolds, O'Hearn, Ozuna, Horwitz, Gonzalez, Trio, and Bart. I got to tell you, I'm getting a little feelings for this lineup, Tom. I like some of the damage they might be able to do.
The name that's not on this list is Connor Griffin, the Pirates' top prospect, who is... I'm not sure if there's a proper way to describe it besides blistering, blasting, destroying the ball thus far in spring training through 5 games in spring training, an extremely small sample size. He has a 545 ISO, which is insane. And there's already been some talks that they're talking to Connor Griffin, the Pirates, that is, about an extension. So I expect him to make the starting roster. He is only 19, so we have to take everything with a grain of salt. But adding him to that lineup, we're actually cooking with something. We talk about the Pirates and some of these bad teams. Yeah. You can take 2 of those players, O'Hearn, Ozuna, Connor Griffin makes it, Brandon Lau because he's a lefty when they're facing righties. And HRR market, Donnie, is looking pretty good for them.
It is. And again, looking at the lineup, some of the things they can do, we don't know how many wins they're going to put across the plate, but at the same time, you look at that lineup and say, you can do some damage. Now we flip it over to the pitching staff. Doesn't get any better than Paul Skeens last year. How about 32 starts, 187.2 innings pitched, Tom, an ERA of under 2. He was sensational. But the question is always, what are we going to get behind him here? Mitch Keller, Braxton Astreff, Bubba Chandler. A lot of these guys have high upsides. And also, like, I know we have Jared Jones listed down there, Tom, but brace surgery last year. He probably expected to come back at some point at this season, but it all feels like it's on Skeens. Can they just get somebody to come behind and be a decent pitcher? And maybe they can move forward here and actually rack up some wins.
That's really what it comes down to. Mitch Keller's a good pitcher. Like, he's not great. Maybe he's just a fine starter. Like, he's a fine middle of the rotation guy. But if you're asking him to be like a pure number 2, that's a bit much. Seeing that Bubba Chandler, we actually need to see a full season out of him. Can he elevate? Can he actually pitch in the majors? Jose Urquidy, who hasn't pitched in years in the majors after his injuries, after his stint with Houston, is just a complete unknown. And Ashcraft is just not a good pitcher, in my opinion. So can Mitch Keller be good enough? And then can Bubba Chandler actually cement himself in the majors and elevate his game?
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. The Pittsburgh Pirates last year, 71 wins, 91 losses, came in last place here. One of the more interesting teams on a year-to-year basis, Tom, and you love the ballpark they play in. It's the Cincinnati Reds.
Oh, yeah.
Looking at this line of Friedel, McLean, Ellie De La Cruz, Eugenio Suarez comes back as a free agent who had 49 bombs last year to be in the middle of that lineup, and a lot of young players all the way throughout. We'll get to the pitching staff, which is interesting in just a few moments, Tom. But again, this is one of those teams, the Cincinnati Reds, where they play, typical pitching staff they have, the power they have in that lineup. Always a fun team to back, regardless of which way you're going on a money line, a total, or more importantly, team total or some props here, Tom.
Yeah, the lineup's good. The lineup's good. It's fun. We know that they made the playoffs last year. Obviously, a quick out to the Dodgers when it's all said and done. But it's a fun lineup. Adding more power, bringing Suarez back after a number of years is good. Top to bottom, I think it's a top half of the league type of lineup, but it's at that bottom end of it. Like we're talking middle of the league. But once it gets hot there, the Great American Ballpark, the ball is jumping off the bats there, and we love that for run production.
By the way, pitching staff, Tom, here, Hunter Green, 276 ERA last year, only 19 starts, 107.2 innings, but it looks like he's rounding back in the form. Andrew Abbott, another younger pitcher there, 287 ERA last year through 29 starts. Then you take a look at Single Adolo and Chase Burns, who was the number 2 overall draft pick in 2024. Tom, this is one of those teams that if they can get right and stay healthy with that pitching staff, why can't they do some damage?
I think they could do some damage. Here's how I would put things. Hunter Green's awesome, absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Chase Burns needs to kind of find a level of stability instead of striking out 9 batters in his first start and then walking 5 as he did in the second start, I believe, against Boston or third. Andrew Abbott was awesome last year. He really was, but it was a little bit of smoke and mirrors, and I think he's due for some massive, massive regression this year. He's still a good pitcher, but he's not a sub-3 ERA pitcher. And if you were to tell me this year he's actually not a sub-4 ERA pitcher, I'm not going to be surprised. I think he's going to be in that 4 or 4.1 range.
Tom, let's go over to the Chicago Cubs, one of those teams always on that list. Ballpark they play and winds blowing out, and I love the lineup. I do. I bet a lot of Cubs baseball last year. Bush, Bregman comes over there. Hap, Suzuki, PCA, Horner, Swanson, Ballesteros, and Kelly. As fun a lineup as you're going to get, Tom. Power with the first 5 to 6 guys in that lineup. This is going to be a team to watch this season, and that lineup should be able to hit it Wrigley.
They really check all the boxes that we want. Obviously in the beginning of the season when it's super cold and there's wind blowing in the middle of April or whatever, Wrigley Field's not great. We know that. But once we start to turn to get to the middle of the May and the weather heats up, we get the wind blowing out, the ball is flying there, and we know what the winds can do at Wrigley. And like you said, the top 6 of that lineup is legit good, has power. They have, HRR markets. PCA was a great option last year, and adding Bregman to that is fantastic. I think his power will take a step back compared to playing at Fenway last year, but it's still an awesome lineup top to bottom.
It is. You take a look at the pitching staff, too. Serviceable is probably the best word you can use. Matthew Boyd, you got Cabrera, Horton, Imanaga, and also Jameson Tyone. So veteran pitchers up there with some high upside as well. No surprise last year. They were in the 90s last year with their win total. I think it was 92. They should be in the 90s once again this year, Tom. This is a team, the Chicago Cubs, that will be a playoff team and certainly maybe the best team in the Central Division.
Yeah, the pitching staff is the point of the Cubs that I have an issue with because Boyd last year was good, but he also slowed down as the year went on. Just a lot of innings for a veteran pitcher. Cabrera coming over is obviously a big addition for them. Imanaga has to stay healthy. Tyone's just a back-end pitcher, so they don't have a ton of depth. And if 1 or 2 of those players struggles and/or goes down with an injury, that's where the issues for the Cubs could come in.
Yeah, they finished second last year to the Milwaukee Brewers, and the Brewers, who we'll talk about in just a few moments here, had 97 wins. So the expectations for last year, which were high, run differential of plus 144, they should do some damage. If you're just looking from a talent to talent per team here, I do like the Reds. I think they're interesting, but the Cubs, for me, are the top of this division. Now, after the break, Tom, we're going to go over the rest of the teams in this division, which does include the Milwaukee Brewers and where they're actually shaping up. The Brewers are always so interesting to me because it just seems they don't make many moves, and all of a sudden, hey, there go the Brewers again, 90-plus wins on the season. We'll talk about them next and much more right here on Pro Baseball Today.
Nick Kurtz will receive American League first place votes this year. You going to buy that, George? Or you want to sell that? I believe we had Caminero, we had Raleigh, we had Aaron Judge.
Bobby Witt. He'll be there as well. I said I'm a big fan of Kurtz. No, we're not related, by the way, for those who are wondering. Okay, not as far as I know. I keep getting that.
You're a little taller than him.
Right, just a wee bit. Yeah, Nick is a.
Be like this, actually.
I'm not sure Nick would fill in his room. Yeah, that's something like that. But my only problem with him, I think he's gonna have a great year. All right, I think he's gonna have a very good year here. He's gonna be fantastic. I picked 12 in my points league. If he's there at 12, I'm taking him. I'm just grabbing him here. I don't have a second round pick, but I'm taking him anyway. My only issue is this: they're not going to be very good, right? They may be a little better than expected. Maybe they approach 500, maybe, but they're not. It's tough to get MVP votes when you're not winning. All right, you're not in the playoff contention or anything like that. Are you going to be able to beat out an Aaron Judge? I'll buy. I think he's going to have a big season. I think he can get one. I don't think he'll be very, it won't be top 3 or anything. But I think he can get one. Yes, I'll buy.
Yeah, I'm going to sell this. I was really I understand what the metric said, and a lot of smart people, George, that I asked told me that Judge probably was the MVP. But man, Cal Raleigh couldn't win MVP with that season that he had last year. And I understand all we're doing is asking questions about first place votes, but don't think there's a lot of love for the voters with Sacramento, no matter what Nick Kurtz does. I'm going to sell this.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Tom Vecchio, Donnie, Rightside right here on a Sunday. Pro Baseball today, getting you ready for the Major League Baseball season, which again, we're in the month of March. Hallelujah. Why? March 25th is opening day, and what we used to have and called baseball heaven, where the fans always showed up, a lot of people in the seats, they always cheered and never booed. Now we're starting to get people not showing up there and booing. Baseball heaven looks like baseball hell right now. Last year, the Cardinals, 78 and 84. The projections this year, not much better, Tom. Looking at the lineup, anticipation. Newport, Herrera, Burleson, Gorman, Wynn, Weatherholt, who actually had a home run the other day off of Devin Williams, Walker, Pajes, and Victor Scott II. Not a lot of pop, not a lot of power, not a lot of excitement for me in this lineup, Tom.
Pass, no thanks, out, whatever you want to say. Now, listen, JJ Weatherholt, is one of the upcoming prospects for them. I have some interest in him. From a fantasy baseball perspective, anyone out there is drafting teams, sure. I think that's an interesting option, but this is a bad lineup. This is the equivalent of the Twins. The Twins or the Cardinals are the two teams I'm just completely out on this year. They're bad teams. They have no power. They have nothing that we're looking for consistently. Is Burleson fine? Sure, it can get there, but top to bottom, I don't like it. And more importantly, the pitching staff is absolutely atrocious. They're going to finish last in the NL Central, and the Pirates will finish 4th.
I'm telling you, you look at the pitching staffs, okay, is there somebody that we can lean on here? Matthew Liberatore, 29 starts last year, Tom, 151 and 2/3 innings pitched, a 4+ ERA. Dustin May, that was your prized, I guess, free agent in December, close to a 5 ERA through 23 starts last year. Palante here, talented arm, no doubt about it, but 5.31 ERA, Tom. It doesn't seem like we're in a season that the Cardinals are like, let's just see what we have. It almost seems like they're saying, okay, we're going to have a lockout this season, doesn't matter. And that's the effort that we're giving our fans here.
It's really the case. Seeing a pitching staff that has, 3 guys that have 2 years or less of experience is that shouldn't give you a warm, fuzzy feeling thinking the Cardinals are going to be competent. It's no, they have so many young players and you need so many things to go right just to be a 500 baseball team when you're already 2 steps behind the Cubs and the Brewers.
Now, here's an interesting thing that we'll talk about. The most wins in Major League Baseball. Usually when you have that time, you have a lot of hype coming into the next season. Didn't spend a lot of money here. The lineup still does look solid for the Brewers. That's Churio, Turan, Contreras, Yelich, Frelick, Vaughn, Rengifo, Mitchell, and Ortiz. There's pop on that lineup. There's guys that hit with average. I like that here. But if we're looking from a perspective, could have we assigned maybe one or two more players here that could have helped out? Maybe so. I mean, their big free agent move was basically Gary Sanchez coming in as a backup catcher. Looking at that lineup itself, Tom, they'll be just fine, but I just don't find the team that led the league in Major League Baseball wins last year with a lot of excitement coming into this season.
I would say the same thing. There's nothing in this lineup that tells me that they're like, oh, they're going to repeat that. They're going to lead the league in wins. They're going to lead the league in run differential, all these sorts of things. Like, is it a good lineup? Yes. Is it a playoff lineup? Probably. I think so. Like, again, there's some pop at the top of the lineup, especially, playing indoors in a controlled environment is always nice to see. But there's like a missing it factor. Like, Churio missed some time last year. Maybe he isn't a superstar. Maybe he's just a really, really good player. But he's not some elite superstar that they think he's going to be. They're kind of just missing that it factor that really is going to push him over the top.
And maybe status quo couldn't be good enough, but as we said, they traded Freddie Peralta, their ace of that staff here. Woodruff, Mizorowski, Priester, Patrick, and Logan Henderson. It still is a semblance of a good roster lineup here for starting pitching, but it would have been much better with Peralta. And you give your fans like, hey, we didn't get it done last year. And yes, the Dodgers were really good, and maybe we're a little bit over-heralded here, but you still won more games than anybody else in baseball. And this year, I look at this lineup, Tom, which includes the pitching staff. They can't afford injuries, as we always like to say with just about every baseball team, but they still will be competent. The Brewers are always competent. You just wish as a fan base then they just said, you know what, we're going to keep Peralta, add another pitcher, add another bat, and say, let's just build on what we did last year. And it looks like they did a subtraction instead of addition.
You would like to think that they just add a piece here, add a piece there, and the lineup would be that much better. But, when I look at this team, it's like losing Freddie Peralta and not replacing him is an issue.
Correct.
Now, you're expecting Chad Patrick and Logan Henderson to step up. And listen, Logan Henderson had a 33% strikeout rate last year. He can really get those strikeouts going, but it was also in a very small sample size. And to see him do that over the course of 180 innings and the course of an entire season has yet to be seen. And same with Mizorowski. He also missed some time due to injury. So you're expecting Mizorowski and Chad Patrick and Logan Henderson all to step up to fill what Freddie Peralta, left, but that's asking a lot again.
You want an all-star team, Tom? You got an all-star team. World Series champion, looking to do it 3 times in a row. It's the Los Angeles Dodgers. We go over the lineup here, and it doesn't seem like it makes any sense. There is no salary cap, and the Dodgers play it up that way. Ohtani, Tucker, Betts, Freeman, Smith, Muncy, Hernandez, Pages, and Kim. The best lineup in Major League Baseball. They hit for average. They hit for pop. Everybody's on base. Speed to move guys over. And that also includes a guy like Mookie Betts who had a down season. Imagine if he bounces back and gets back to the Mookie Betts we know. And I did see was it the paper out there, the Post in Los Angeles, saying like, hey, Freddie, you better play a little bit better this season. This team has way too much talent through that 1 through 9, Tom. They'll be favorites just about every game we go through.
It's going to be every game. It's going to be favorites by $2, $3, whatever you want to call it. They have a good bench. Listen, Mookie Betts started off the season really rough last year when they went to play the international games in Japan. He got sick. He lost like 20 pounds and he just had a rough time coming back. He was missing his time at the plate. He went through stretches where he was 0 for 20, 0 for 30 in a row. But even if he does not a full bounce back, even if he's half better, right, 50% better than he was last year, that's an unbelievable booster lineup, knowing that they added Kyle Tucker, knowing that they still have Freddie Freeman. We're talking about 4 or 5 hitters at the top of the lineup who could all legitimately or have hit for 30, 40 home runs, which is unbelievable to think of. And still the bottom portion of that lineup, Muncy, he went through struggles last year. Hernandez, Pages, and Kim, who's off to a great start. There's no flaws in it.
And what we always talk about the Dodgers, too, we're going to get to the pitching staff and the bullpen in just a few moments here, Tom, but you look at the Dodgers, it's always like, they have the double shot on the season. All right, here's our projected lineup to start the season. If things aren't working well at the deadline, we have more money, ammunition, and prospects. We can go out and get maybe the best pitcher out there or the best hitter that is available. And also, you're just looking to say, summer is not a sprint like last year. They didn't have the most wins in Major League Baseball, but once they got to the playoffs, everybody's like, you got to be kidding me with this lineup. The pitching staff they're bringing to the table right now and also that lineup here, it's just going to wreck and do damage. And they did that. But then again, still got to the World Series and had to show some moxie in winning Game 7 on the road in Toronto to be a champion again back-to-back. We're going to get into that pitching staff next. And that bullpen, the Dodgers have it all. We'll be right back.
Nick Kurtz will receive American League first place votes this year. You going to buy that, George? You want to sell that? I believe we had Caminero, we had Raleigh, we had Aaron Judge.
Bobby Witt. He'll be there as well. I'm a big fan of Kurtz. No, we're not related, by the way, for those who are wondering. Okay, not as far as I know. I keep getting that.
You're a little taller than him.
Right, just a wee bit. Yeah, Nick is a.
Be like this, actually.
I'm not sure Nick would fill in this room. Yeah, that's something like that. But my only problem with him, I think he's gonna have a great year. All right, I think he's gonna have a very good year here. He's gonna be fantastic. I picked 12 in my points league. If he's there at 12, I'm taking him. I'm just grabbing him here. I don't have a second round pick, but I'm taking him anyway. My only issue is this: they're not going to be very good, right? They may be a little better than expected. Maybe they approach 500, maybe, but it's tough to get MVP votes when you're not winning. All right, you're not in the playoff contention or anything like that. Are you going to be able to beat out an Aaron Judge? I'll buy. I think he's going to have a big season. I think he can get one. I don't think he'll be very, it won't be top 3 or anything. But I think he can get one. Yes, I'll buy.
Yeah, I'm going to sell this. I was really I understand what the metric said, and a lot of smart people, George, that I asked told me that Judge probably was the MVP. But man, Cal Raleigh couldn't win MVP with that season that he had last year. And I understand all we're doing is asking questions about first place votes, but don't think there's a lot of love for the voters with Sacramento, no matter what Nick Kurtz does. I'm going to sell this.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Sometimes you got to extend talking points on one of the most polarizing teams in Major League Baseball. It's Tom Vecchio, it's Donnie Rightside. It's the Los Angeles Dodgers. You look at that lineup 1 through 9. You know they're going to make changes here. Injuries aren't going to matter because they're so talented here. And then we'll just see, Tom, and reconvene like September the 25th. Ooh, are they healthy? Now we get to the pitching staff here. Yamamoto, Glasnow, who we told you probably isn't going to start the season. Shohei Ohtani, which is absolutely ridiculous. Emmett Sheehan, Roki Sasaki, and just a dearth of talent still in the minor league system, Tom. On a day-to-day basis, they are better in their lineup than you and better in their starting pitching, which means it's going to be few and far frequently here that you take a look and say, hey, the Dodgers are dogs today.
So it's Snell that's not going to be ready. That we said Glasnow is in. Snell is not. So,
I apologize.
Yes, but there's so many options that we often forget about what they have. I'm really interested in what we get from Emmett Sheehan, that one of their back end starters. This is a pitcher who had a 30+% strikeout rate last year, sub-1 home run per 9, and had a 3.37 xFIP. If he can stay healthy and he can, elevate his game, Snell being out for the first 2 months of the season, 3 months of the season, whatever, it almost doesn't matter. So when you get Snell back, I don't know if they would go with a 6-man rotation specifically because Ohtani is in the mix and they just want to give him a little bit of extra rest and not to put too much of a workload on his plate. But a 6-man rotation from the Dodgers is very viable, and they have 4 pitchers that can all have a 30+% strikeout rate, which not many or any other team can touch.
Yeah, and if they want to, just in the playoffs, just throw dominant starters in the bullpen, they become untouchable as well, which brings us up to the bullpen. The one thing we thought, Tom, late in the season last year and heading into the playoffs, we knew the Dodgers would hit. We knew they'd have starting pitching. But maybe that bullpen was a little bit of that, you know what? Let's stay away from it. Well, they did do that. They used starting pitchers out of the bullpen. They were phenomenal all the way through to the World Series and won. Edwin Diaz comes over as a free agent from the New York Mets. Scott, Vesia, Trinan, Dreyer, Klein, Robleski, Henriquez, Kasparius. This starting 1 through 9, starting rotation, and bullpen together, Tom. This is an absolute machine right now.
It really is. We didn't even mention that Tommy Edman is going to start the season on the IL. And he's going to obviously be a solid bench player for them, infield, whatever it might be. The bullpen was the issue for the Dodgers in last season. Everyone talked about it, especially down the stretch. They were blowing some leads. August was a rough month for the Dodgers. And obviously, when you have the luxury of putting starters in the bullpen in the playoffs, that's fantastic. But then once you remedy the bullpen, and then you can still put starters in the bullpen come the playoffs and still have Diaz to come out at the back end, it's unbelievable top to bottom. There's no flaws in this team. And ultimately, when they need to, they'll just make the trades in season if they have to fix something.
By the way, the Dodgers are supposed to win the World Series. They're favored by a wide margin to do that. We just went over the team. Starting lineup, starting pitchers, and bullpen. It's as good as it gets. We still have to play the games on the field. And once you get to the playoffs, Tom,
Right.
those first rounds, 3 games, then 5 games, then 7 games, there's a chance to get knocked off by a hot team here. One of those interesting teams now is the San Francisco Giants, Tom. Looking at their 1 through 9, they pick up Louis Arise there as a free agent here. Love the fact that you start him off in that lineup. Rafael Devers, Willie Adames, Matt Chapman, Jung-Hoo Lee, Ramos, Bader, who comes over from the Philadelphia Phillies as a free agent, got him pretty cheap there, Eldridge and Patrick Bailey. I'm intrigued by this starting lineup here, Tom, for the San Francisco Giants.
I am too. I mentioned it to you the other day that I'm interested in the Giants team total over 81.5 this season. I really think they made some good moves. They bolster their lineup just a little bit. Bryce Eldridge is one of their top prospects that, should be making the opening day roster. He has plenty of power. I like it. I like this team top to bottom. Is it a lineup that has many guys that all have 30, 40 plus home runs? No, but it's good enough that I think they'll be better than they were last year.
Yeah, again, it's a true pitcher's ballpark here. Devers, 35 home runs last year. Adames with 30 home runs here. And you take a look at that lineup from top to bottom. Nice mix of lefties and righties. I like that lineup, but again, sometimes it's tough just to do the ballpark that they actually pitch in. Speaking of the pitching staff here, Logan Webb, Robbie Ray, Tyler Mahle, Adrian Hauser, and Ralph. You get the 2 free agent signings here, Tom, for Hauser and Mahle to sort of fill that out. Robbie Ray, a power pitcher, can be good, can be bad at times. 3.65 ERA, not terrible last year, but they lean on Logan Webb. They need him to be solid this year. Through 34 starts last year, he finished with a 3.22 ERA.
Yeah, the top of the rotation's good. Logan Webb is absolutely awesome. He's finished in the top 5-ish of Cy Young. Robbie Ray is good. He's not as good as he once was. The health and the innings will always be an issue for him. It really comes down to the back end of the rotation and the injuries and who they have to replace said injuries as they come up. But I like the lineup, and I like the top 2 options in the rotation.
Now, we take a look at these teams. We're going to get to some of the bottom feeders here, which includes the Colorado Rockies and where they'll wind up. But the Los Angeles Dodgers, Tom, to win this division, minus 700 here, followed by the Padres at plus 950. We'll get to them in the San Francisco Giants at a 17-1 price. Looks like a runaway for the Dodgers, but as we said, we still have to play the games. Hour number 2 on deck next.
Nick Kurtz will receive American League first place votes this year. You gonna buy that, George? You want to sell that? I believe we had Caminero, we had Raleigh, we had Aaron Judge,
Bobby Witt. He'll be there as well. I'm a big fan of Kurtz. No, we're not related, by the way, for those who are wondering. Okay, not as far as I know. I keep getting that.
You're a little taller than him.
Right, just a wee bit. Yeah, Nick is a.
Feel like this, actually.
I'm not sure Nick would fill in his room. Yeah, that's something like that. But my only problem with him, I think he's gonna have a great year. All right, I think he's gonna have a very good year here. He's gonna be fantastic. I picked 12 in my points league. If he's there at 12, I'm taking him. I'm just grabbing him here. I don't have a second round pick, but I'm taking him anyway. My only issue is this: they're not gonna be very good, right? They may be a little better than expected. Maybe they approach 500, maybe. But it's tough to get MVP votes when you're not winning. All right, you're not in the playoff contention or anything like that. Are you going to be able to beat out an Aaron Judge? I'll buy. I think he's going to have a big season. I think he can get 1. I don't think he'll be very, it won't be top 3 or anything. But I think he can get 1. Yes, I'll buy.
Yeah, I'm going to sell this. I was really I understand what the metric said, and a lot of smart people, George, that I asked told me that Judge probably was the MVP. But man, Cal Raleigh couldn't win MVP with that season that he had last year. And I understand all we're doing is asking questions about first place votes, but don't think there's a lot of love for the voters with Sacramento, no matter what Nick Kurtz does. I'm going to sell this.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday starting at 3 p.m. only on